Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today I want to talk a little bit more about the Ethereum ecosystem, because lately it feels like it's been a bit of an underperformer within the wider market, and it's kind of been, I would say, kind of the butt of some of the jokes. It's kind of yesterday's news. A lot of people have kind of moved on to, the next shiny object, which currently seems to be Solana. There's a ton of hype around Solana. There's a ton of interest, not unjustified, but I do think there's a lot of interesting things going on in Ethereum that people are overlooking and potentially underrating. So I want to spend a little bit of time going over that. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So to start, we're going to go over crypto bubbles. And as we can see on the day here, it's pretty mixed. We got a mixed bag overall. Overall, we've got Tau and Fetch. Those are down pretty big. It looks like maybe there's a wider pullback on AI coins, maybe more generally. We can see a caution render, same type of thing. So maybe there's like an AI DPIN overall pullback that could be happening, but nothing too crazy going on. Everything overall is kind of it's a mixed bag, which given some of the fear and some of the choppiness we've seen in the market, I would say makes pretty decent sense. So moving on, I wanted to check out the ETH USD chart. So this is zooming out. This is about the past year and a half. And what we can see is, ETH has struggled, at least since March when it hit that recent high of $4,000. It's pulled back a decent chunk, and we're now sitting in what seems to be a relatively small upward channel right here. Now, if we zoom in, we can see, we got a little bit of an upward channel forming, but we are sitting between kind of two, I would say, somewhat major levels of support and resistance here. So, we are kind of just range bound for at least a little bit until we break one side or the other. Kind of with everything else in the crypto market, Bitcoin kind of leads. So I would say until we see some major movement from Bitcoin, I doubt we'll see anything too crazy from Ethereum. We might be able to reclaim 3,000, maybe even 3,200 without any major moves within Bitcoin. But I don't know. There's a lot of talk around Bitcoin and Bitcoin kind of being the one that makes the move first, and then things kind of roll downhill from there. So I do think that where we're at right now, there's nothing too crazy setting up. It does look structurally decent on like a daily time frame, because we do look to be in an uptrend. So I do think we could get back to the 3,000, 3,200. ETH did get hit much harder than pretty much any other alt did in the pullback, comparatively to kind of their size and market cap and just overall recent performance. So I do think seeing ETH reclaim 3,000, maybe even 3,200 wouldn't be too abnormal, I guess, just given the circumstance that it's been hit a lot harder than some of the others. So what we can see overall, though, is the performance on ETH just really hasn't been too amazing overall. We can see, if we're looking back down at the lows at the very bottom of the bear market, we got under 1,000 down here, and then obviously we came back to make a run all the way up to 4,000, which 4x not a bad return. But since then we have seen it come back almost 50% down at the lows when we had that kind of panic about a month ago at this point. So not great in terms of recent performance. I think some of this is maybe some interest switching on to Solana, just because Solana has kind of been the shining star of this cycle so far. Now, moving specifically into the Ethereum ecosystem, there's a couple of things that I wanted to point out. So the first one is Ultrasound Money has this chart that essentially tracks the Ethereum supply. Now, what we could see is a while back we had this merge that happened, and essentially what happened is we moved from proof of work to proof of stake, but there was also essentially an issue and burn mechanism. So it gives Ethereum the ability to become deflationary, not just inflationary forever. Bitcoin is obviously inflationary until about 2140, when the emissions are expected to stop, and then after that it will just sit at the flat 21 million Bitcoin forever. So here, though, Ethereum has more of a dynamic supply in terms of how it works, because there are Ethereum issued as part of a block reward, but also gas fees are subsequently burned. So what this can do is this can turn Ethereum deflationary, which we have seen. It is net deflationary. However, as we've seen since March, it has started to inflate again. Now this, in my mind, there hasn't been any sort of confirmation of this, but based on what I'm seeing, this to me looks like a result of the DENCUN upgrade that they had. It's an upgrade essentially that allowed this thing in Ethereum called blobs. And what blobs do is they essentially allow like short-term memory to be tacked onto the block that is actually being mined currently. And so what this does is this allows for a much larger pool of essentially information that can be stored rather than just what is actually within the block itself. So this gives essentially much higher scalability parameters for the Ethereum ecosystem because it can handle a lot more data and therefore keep gas fees lower. So part of, I think, why we're seeing this inflate again is because if you see, so the DENCUN upgrade happened on March 13th. So right about here at the peak of Ethereum dropping. And then we see essentially price, not a price, but Ethereum coin supply actually inflate from here. Now, if we look, some people, and a lot of what I've been seeing in the market and on Twitter and things like that, are people are saying, oh, well, Ethereum's dead, gas fees are low, nobody's using Ethereum, it's all about Solana. And yeah, that could be true. A possibility of that at least could be true. But if we look at Ethereum daily transactions, we can see that it's not true in the sense that a lot of people are saying, or they're trying to make it out to be, right? Yes, we have seen an overall slight downtrend since about March. It's pulled back a little bit, but we can see, in March, we were sitting at about 1.3 million transactions daily. And now if we're our most recent, we're at about a million, just shy of 1.1 million transactions. And that was from about a week ago. So, we're sitting in a lower time frame. Let's see if we even go to a month, we might get better. Yeah, okay, so today we had 1.15 million transactions. So as we can see, it's definitely pulled back a little bit, but really not that much overall. And so the theory or the claim that Ethereum is dead, nobody's transacting on it anymore, it's all about Solana, that's not true, right? A lot of the drop in gas fees and gas prices on Ethereum is largely, I would say, due to this DENCUN upgrade, right? We can see here it's actually less than 1 GWE, it's actually 0.72. So this is, I would say, is actually a really good thing for the market overall, because one of the worst things about transacting on Ethereum was just how expensive that it was. I mean, there were times where I was paying $100, $200, $300 on gas fees, which is just ridiculous. But at this point, now it's, I think gas fees, especially if you're on a layer 2, they're not even a penny, which I think is really where we need to be for scalability to really take full effect. And so what I'm seeing on Ethereum is that really the road is being paved for quick finality, massive scalability, and overall pretty decent decentralization with the L1. And Ethereum essentially has kind of made this bargain or this compromise that Ethereum, nothing really is going to be built on the layer 1 unless they want it to be slow, expensive, and extremely secure. So everything on the layer 1 is secured by Ethereum itself, but everything else on the layer 2 is actually secured by the layer 2. So there is a bit of a sacrifice in security, but what you're sacrificing in security, you are definitely getting back in speed and cost efficiency. So, there are certain things like, crypto gaming, I think, is one that has a really, really strong potential to be one of the big winners of this cycle. You don't need that to be bank level security or, maximum, unhackability or anything like that, right? Obviously you want the security, but you don't need it. There's not going to be trillions of dollars sitting on your mobile game that runs on the blockchain, right? So that's something where you can sacrifice, the layer 1 security, and you can bring it down onto a layer 2 and for that speed and that cost efficiency, because that's really what's most important. So looking at layer 2s, what we can see is, especially over about the past year and a half, we've really seen a spike in activity, actually peaking in June. We saw peak price action on Ethereum back in March, but this wasn't even close to peak layer 2 activity. So this, in my opinion, is actually something that's very bullish. And this is one of the main reasons I wanted to create a video talking about this, is because as we've seen over time for transaction counts, in March, this was kind of the peak of the mini bull run, is kind of what people were calling it, right? They're at 9.8 million transactions. Since then, we're at, 16.8. So, and I guess back down to 15.1 here. So, there's definitely been a huge amount of improvement in activity in the ecosystem. And what we can see here is this is largely attributed to Base, and then, Arbitrum, Linea, Optimism, Mantle, Tycho, Scroll, ZK. Some of the, they're all kind of coming in, but the majority of all of the activity is really coming through Base, which I wouldn't, if you're familiar with Ethereum, I wouldn't say that this is probably that surprising. Base has done a really, really good job of onboarding people into their ecosystem, and Base has done really well. It's probably been the top layer too in terms of like publicity and media share and things like that, and that's probably largely because it's associated with Coinbase. But that overall, I would say that's pretty good. And if we're looking at total value locked, it's kind of a bit of an interesting story here, because Arbitrum is like far and away the one that controls the most value locked, then followed by Base, and then Optimism after that. One thing that I find really interesting, and why this may be potentially a little bit misleading, is a lot of the value locked on Arbitrum, if I had to guess, is probably due to staking of their Arbitrum token, where Base doesn't have a token, right? They never did any of that sort of release. And so for me, at least personally, looking at this, $6 billion not kind of artificially pumped by your own token is pretty impressive, honestly. Like, this to me speaks to the like massive success that Base has been so far, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how that continues to go. But just speaking in total value locked, Arbitrum is definitely kind of the they're the one to beat here for sure. Now, coming here to daily active addresses, we can see same story. Base has done very, very well. Arbitrum follows that with Linnea and Optimism after that. What we can see though actually is, Arbitrum did used to actually, in May, they were the top, but they've since started to kind of pull back, and Base has kind of taken that spot as the number one. So that's something that's interesting to see as well. Like I said, I don't know that this is super surprising. Base does essentially kind of suck all the air out of the room when it comes to layer 2s. I think there are a couple others that, if crypto gaming starts to take off, Immutable might be another. Polygon is about to do another really important upgrade. They're actually releasing their own layer 2, and they're also releasing this AG layer that Immutable and OKX is creating their own chain. It's called the X layer, I believe. And both of those are going to be on this AG layer, which is essentially looking to unify liquidity. So if they can actually do that, this would be a huge thing for Ethereum. So, overall, the reason I want to make this video is just to kind of hopefully show you guys that even though Ethereum, like, not a lot is happening so far in terms of price action, there's a lot of really interesting things going on in terms of growth and activity that we're seeing in layer 2s. Earlier in the year, we saw the whole like restaking craze as far as helping secure layer 2s. We've got the data availability thing going on. I mean, even if we go back to the beginning of the video looking at crypto bubbles, I mean, probably, don't quote me on this isn't like an exact stat, but I would say, if I had to take a guess, probably close to a third to half of the projects that you would see on crypto bubbles are very likely Ethereum-based projects. So Ethereum's still definitely not one to count out, if you ask me. Obviously, Solana entering the market, and then, the possibility of Bitcoin layer 2s are both something that serve as a threat to Ethereum. But from my perspective, I think Ethereum really truly is kind of the source of innovation at this point in time. That may be starting to change with more interesting projects either popping up or moving over to Solana. But at this point in time, I do think Ethereum still is the one to watch, and I do think the price of Ethereum might be kind of unnecessarily beat up. And so, when things are unnecessarily beat up and people are not giving it the respect that it deserves, sometimes that's an opportunity for outsized gains. Again, not investment advice. I don't know what's going to happen to Ethereum. There's a lot of things that could happen to Ethereum, some of them positive, some of them negative. But ultimately, this is something that, just from looking at it, something just doesn't seem to smell right in terms of ETH's position in the market and kind of the shade it gets thrown for how much it actually is currently doing within the crypto space. So hopefully you found this information helpful and this video useful. This is a relatively new channel, so if you did enjoy the content, please do like and subscribe. It really does help me out. I am trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of October, and so if I could make that happen, that'd be really cool, and I'd be very appreciative. Also, feel free to leave me a comment if you have anything you want to mention or bring up or point out to me. I do read all of my comments, and I respond to all of them. So I'd love to hear from you in the comments as well. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.